Down by the bay, where the sun always shines, the Rays play ball in those Floridian climes, with a crack of the bat and a crowd full of cheer. They're the heart of the town, that much is clear. In Tropicana Field, where dreams come alive, the Rays play ball and those Floridian prize. Their fans raise a roar as they take on the field. Every game is a story, legends revealed. Oh, the Tampa Bay Rays, they steal the show with every pitch, every throw. From morning to night, under skies so blue, we're singing for you, oh Rays, it's true. With a lineup precise, they twirl and they spin. Their plays are so smooth, where to begin? From the first inning's thrill to the final score, the heart of the Bay, and we couldn't ask for more. Through the highs and the lows, they give it their best. Every player's determined, tougher than the rest. In sun or in rain, they light up the game, and they leave on our lips just one name. Oh, the Tampa Bay Rays, they steal the show with every pitch, every throw. From morning to night, under skies so blue, we're singing for you, oh Rays, it's true. Do 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 do. Through the highs and the lows, they give it their best. Every player's determined, tougher than the rest. In sun or in rain, they light up the game, and they leave on our lips just one name. Oh, the Tampa Bay Rays, they steal the show with every pitch, every throw. From morning to night, under skies so blue, we're singing for you, oh Rays, it's true.
And now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
This is the RBLR Rays podcast. I'm your host, Zach Doppel, as my co-host today, Carter Brantley, joining us. Carter, thank you for joining us today. You are muted, sir.
Thank you for having me on. So sorry about that. The mute bug comes for us all eventually.
It does.
Yeah.
It's come to me many times.
Exactly. Yeah, it happens all the time on the Buck Show. But yeah, appreciate y'all having me on. Excited to talk some Rays baseball because there's actually a season going on here. The Buck Show, we're having to milk that NFL draft for weeks upon end. But yeah, excited to talk about some baseball because the Rays are playing. Ups and downs of the season, all that stuff. So excited to get into it for sure.
Yeah, it's very exciting. The Rays have a manager, unlike other teams in the American League East, which we will get to. Retirements of franchise legends being done right. guys coming back from the injured list that are very much needed and making an immediate impact. Another series win. It was a eventful week in Rays baseball, and we're going to talk about all of it. Jam-packed show today. So excited to have all of you with us. If you would do us a huge favor, if you are joining us for the first time, please stick around. We're going to have lots of ball to talk. If you are coming back from a previous show, thank you for coming on back. Do us a huge favor if you can. Drop us a like on whatever media you're watching us on, and hop in the comments over on YouTube. Tell us what you think. We're going to have a lot of topics today that I'd like to hear y'all's opinion on. So hop on in there and let us know what you think. But we're going to kind of get right into it with there's several big news pieces, but where we're going to start is guys returning from injury. One guy in particular, Josh Lowe. He replaces Travis Jankowski. Thank you for your service. I wouldn't hate seeing him back on the roster. He did a good job, but it may be thank you for your service time for Travis Jankowski. We'll see. But for now, he goes on the injury list. Josh Lowe returns from the injury list. We also had some weirdness with Yandy Diaz throughout the week. Apparently didn't get his passport in time, couldn't make it to the Toronto series. So Coco Montez was up for a day or two. I guess 3 days technically. And then Yandy comes right back on when we come back to Miami. Mason Englert gets optioned down to Durham and replaced with Connor Siebold, who got into the action a little bit yesterday. A lot of moves in the last week. None more impactful, though, than Josh Lowe finally coming back and making Carter an immediate impact.
Yeah, I mean, that first game, my goodness, he hits a home run. He hits one home run, right? Just one?
He hit the one, let's see, in the first game that he was
right in the first game. But the first game he hit a home run, and then he had at least another extra base hit too. He was electric out there. He was just really powering. I mean, I don't want to say powering the Rays offense because they just had a day. The day he returned, they really just tarnished that Blue Jays legacy right there. But yeah, they had a great day. And Josh Lowe was at the center of it. I don't know, things just felt different with him at the top of the lineup. People just felt more energized. Everyone was having really good at bats. Obviously, one game, that's, easy things to say without much proof, but excited to see how he can contribute to the Rays now that he's healthy, because when he's healthy and he's right, he can be really, really fun to watch. And he can be a really important part of this offense for sure. So excited to have him back. And, it kind of creates, I know the whole positional clog thing is a myth, but it does create a little bit, too many outfielders for the 3 outfield spots, right? So it'll be interesting to see how the Rays and Kevin Cash decide to kind of operate from that perspective moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that, his first game back, first at-bat, singles into a Bilal bomb. The thing that I think is going to be really interesting is Yandy has been the primary leadoff guy for this team so far this year. But kind of like you said, I liked the look of, maybe not against lefties, but at least against righties, of Josh Lowe leading off into Bilal, into probably Junior, into Aranda. That's a really strong top of your lineup against a righty. And then against a lefty, he can slot in, maybe later in the lineup with Yandy leading off against a lefty. But I really liked that lineup. And you mentioned about the energy. I mean, we definitely felt it with a 8-run explosion. Had 2 really nice offensive games against the Blue Jays, which we always love to do, and we tend to do pretty well up there in Toronto. So it wasn't a shock that we had a nice series there. But will be interesting to see if Josh Lowe makes more appearances in the leadoff spot going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, it's kind of a tough balance to strike, right? Because you want to have a guy with his amount of power hit with maybe a little bit more guys on base, but at the same time, making the pitcher, first pitch, you got to be on, because otherwise Josh Lowe is going to, can potentially take you deep, sort of the Kyle Schwarber thing with the Phillies that they had going on last year. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And honestly, against lefties, I wouldn't mind just seeing him not play, just have him take a seat, because his injury stuff, just as much rest as you can get him. And he's not super awesome against lefties anyways. So that might be the way they approach it. But I'll be really interested to see. I mean, lineup construction is always so you're not really talking about anything super major, but it's still fun to talk about. But
it is.
The difference between Josh Lowe hitting in the 1 spot or the 4 spot is probably not going to be that huge, but yeah, I don't know. It's going to be something to monitor moving forward. Kevin Cash is always looking for different ways to do things, so it's going to be cool either way.
Yep, it'll be really cool. Those were the big injury updates and moves from the last week. The other big Rays related news from the last week was Evan Longoria officially retires, will be honored at a game with a one-day contract and retire officially as a Ray. I believe it is June 9th or 7th. I can't remember which day.
I think it's June 7th because I think I have tickets to it. So
yeah, I would, if I was around, I would too. But when you first saw that headline of Longoria retires and the Rays are gonna do right by him and give him that one-day contract and have that kind of moment for him, what were your thoughts and emotions around that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely just I don't want to say it was a pleasant, I don't want to say a surprise because it's kind of one of those easy like slam dunk PR moves where like doesn't cost you anything. You get to sell a bunch of tickets. I mean, I we bought tickets, so you get to sell some extra tickets with a little ceremony, and everyone gets to reflect and talk about the Rays and their prime. Well, not their prime. They have a long prime, but
one of their primes. Yeah,
one of the golden day eras of the Rays. Because Evan Longoria, a big part of that. And I was really excited because it's been weird. Like he hasn't played. Like I don't think he played at all last year, and the year before I think he was with the Diamondbacks with their World Series run. And he's just kind of he hasn't been the Rays Evan Longoria for quite some time, and so it's been a bit tough to see him struggle. But glad he's sailing off into the sunset. It'll be nice to see him back in the Rays stadium. It's not the Trop, so it's going to feel kind of weird, but
yeah, it will.
But it's all good. I'm excited to see him go out there. I feel like I haven't heard or seen from him in a while. I know he did the Here to Stay commercial last year, which right.
We'll just leave that alone.
Yeah, we'll leave that alone. But it'll be nice to see him. It's been a minute, and he was a very formative part of my early Rays fandom, if you will. So very exciting stuff.
Yeah. There was some conversation. I can't remember if it was 2023 or 2024. I think it was 2023. People wanting Longo to be brought back, maybe a little bit 2024 too, brought back and put on the roster. And we kind of said, as much as it would have been fun for that to happen, it just didn't really make sense with the way the roster was constructed. We already had a glut of middle infielders, so it didn't really make sense to bring him back. But it really, really cool they're going to get to do this and bring him back for the one-day contract, celebrate his career as there is no argument that he's the greatest Ray ever. There's not even really a conversation, I don't think. There's really isn't. And so really cool that he's going to be able to be honored in that way. I imagine they will usher him directly into the Rays Hall of Fame as quickly as possible. And that'll be great. I made that comment about the Rays Hall of Fame very sneakily because before we move on to the week of games and some interesting news in Baltimore, I want to do a little Hall of Fame talk.
Ooh,
because there has been some we could talk about the other Hall of Fame news for the week.
Yeah, the more depressing Hall of Fame.
A little more depressing. But the news I want to talk about is Evan Longoria's Hall of Fame case. I've got some numbers and some thoughts and some narrative ball to play. But when I say Evan Longoria Hall of Fame, what's your gut reaction to that?
I want to say yes. I definitely want to say he's I don't think he gets in. I do think he lasts longer than one. I don't think he's a one and done guy like Zobi and Fernando Rodney were. I do think that he's at the very least warranting of consideration. The biggest, I don't want to. Comps are always so hard and so lazy, but when Scott Rowland got in, it gave me a little bit more faith that Longo could make it in because to me, Rowland's probably a little bit better. He has a little bit more longevity. I think he won some World Series titles with the Cardinals. And he didn't play for the Rays. The Rays, for better or for worse, small market, they don't get as much attention as the St. Louis Cardinals. That's a big time team. So I don't know that that's a direct comparison, but when Roland made it in, gave me a little bit more faith that Longo could make it in because they're both glove first third baseman. They both didn't quite have the best numbers. They didn't have the best counting stats. Longo doesn't like you hear all the old heads talk about, oh, he's got to have 2,000 hits. And Longo, unfortunately, doesn't have that. But he's got almost 60 baseball reference WAR, which I know, it's nebulous WAR is, and also 60 isn't exactly like there's no standard or anything. But if you're around 60, you've got a decent shot to at least have a conversation. So I think there's certainly a case to be made. Like there's a guy, Brian Kenny, that I really like, and he always talks about at least make a case for him. And I think Longoria is definitely one of those guys that you could very easily make a case for him to be in the Hall of Fame, and it'd be quite a convincing one. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I don't know. He won't be first ballot, but I also don't think he'll be first ballot off either. So he might take a long time if he does make it in, but we'll see. We'll see.
I've got a case to make for him. Before I make it, I'd like to make a case to all of you who are watching to do us a massive favor and just hit subscribe or follow on whatever platform you're watching us on. It is free. It doesn't do anything to you except for let you know when we're going to go live, and helps us out so much. If you are enjoying any part of the show, if you agree with me that Evan Longoria should be in the Hall of Fame, which I'm about to get into, then do us a huge favor, drop a subscribe. And if you disagree, drop a comment over on YouTube and tell me why you disagree. I don't think there's probably too many Rays fans that are going to argue with me too much.
Right.
But let me give you my argument. So when I think about the Hall of Fame, I generally think of three things that need to exist for you to be in the Hall of Fame. You need to have a sort of like a baseline level of longevity and some baseline counting stats to, just the basics, like, you play for 10-ish years. You are pretty good every or most of the time, like just some basic stuff, like to even be considered. Hitting that 60 WAR number, I think gets him to, okay, we're at least going to talk about it. Like Carlos Pena, we love Carlos Pena, 25 WAR doesn't really work. Right. But Longo gets there to about 60-ish WAR, and that at least I think starts the conversation. The other two parts, especially if your counting stats aren't, amazing. The other two things that I always like to bring into consideration when we're talking about the Hall of Fame is, number one, were you ever the best player at your position, preferably for an extended period or at least a couple of years? Were you ever the best player at your position? And then number two, could you tell the story of whatever sport you're in without you? Going to the first one, in your opinion, was Evan Longoria ever the best third baseman in baseball for any period of time?
Ooh, that's tough. I'd really have to sit down, but he played with Beltre. Beltre was really freaking good at the time.
He was.
I know, A-Rod with the steroid stuff kind of discounts him, but even, you could even make the argument that Longoria was better anyways. But it's tough because like even Roland was active back then, and same with like I mentioned with Beltre, and then Arenado sort of comes along towards the middle of Longoria's career. Same with Manny Machado. So it's tough. I don't know. I don't know. That's a tough question. I'd have to sit down and really evaluate it. But that's a good way of looking at it for sure.
Yeah. Well, I've helped you out a little bit, and I've sat down and looked at it.
There you go.
From 2009 to 2011, Evan Longoria led all third basemen in baseball in F4.
Okay.
Every single year.
I like
in
it.
all three of those years, he was the best third baseman in F4 by at least 0.5. In some years, almost a full win above the next closest third baseman. And by the way, like you mentioned, 2009, he beat out Ryan Zimmerman, Kevin Youkilis, Pablo Sandoval, Alex Rodriguez, Scott Rowland. In 2010, some of the same guys are on that list as well. Alex Rodriguez, Ryan Zimmerman, Jose Bautista, Adrian Beltre, Chase Headley, all guys finishing multiple wins or at least one win behind him. And then in 2011, Adrian Beltre, Kevin Youkilis again. Like Chipper Jones was still kicking around somehow, finishing higher than him. So he every single year for 3 years was pretty clearly, according to F4, the best third baseman in baseball. So, and then when you go and look, Baseball Reference kind of has this statistic called JAWS, which basically kind of looks at your peak and those like your best years. When you look at number one, the 7-year peak for Evan Longoria, 42.3 WAR in that peak period. The average WAR for a Hall of Fame third baseman, 43.4. So he's right there.
Right.
The peak is there. So when you talk about was he ever the best third baseman? He was, and he was a top 5 from 2008 basically till like 2013, 2014. He was a top 5 third baseman. So not only was he the best at several points in his career for a 3-year span, but he also was a top guy there for an extended period of time. And then the last point that I mentioned earlier is, can you tell the story of baseball without Evan Longoria? You can't. Game 162, so many other moments throughout Rays history where Evan Longoria's fingerprints are right there. And not just Rays history, but baseball history. The run that the Rays made unexpectedly to the World Series. Any of the playoff runs from that kind of 2008, 2012 Rays team are there. You cannot tell the story of baseball without Evan Longoria, in my opinion. When you look at that fact, when you look at how good he was in his peak and how he was clearly the best third baseman for an extended period of time in Major League Baseball, and he was not doing it against nobodies. He was doing it against Hall of Famers, right? He was outperforming them. Some of them weren't in their prime for sure, but he was still doing it against Hall of Famers and outperforming Hall of Famers. And then as much as we, downplay a little bit his counting stats, 1930 hits, 342 home runs, almost 1,200 RBI, career OPS plus of 119, WRC plus a little higher than that. I mean, 3-time Gold Glove, Rookie of the Year, Silver Slugger, 3-time All-Star. I'm just saying that I don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But 5-6 years in, I think he should be in. Because, I'm a lot of times I'm a small Hall guy overall. Like, I like to Hall of Fame to mean something. But I feel like Evan Longoria not being in the Hall of Fame leaves the Hall of Fame incomplete. When you have somebody who was as good as he was, he is like, you think about guys like Tim Lincecum or Troy Tulowitzki, who were kind of like bright flashes for very short periods of time. Well, Longo kind of, has that flash of like brilliance for a short period of time, but he mixes that with a little bit of longevity in there as well, which I think gets him over the hump. And, maybe it's 7 or 8 years into his tenure, but I think he should make it in eventually.
Yeah, if he can just hang the horrible part, this is what I hate about Hall of Fame voting, is that guys can just fall off.
Yes.
They have that weird under 5% rule, and I don't really dig that. I feel like there's got to be a little bit more leniency there. But if he can hang around the ballot for a few years, he can definitely garnish some support, get some campaigning going, if you will. Plus, it'd just be fun to have like a Rays player in the Hall of Fame because Boggs and McGriff. They're not Rays Hall of Famers. Like, they had amazing careers outside, and then they kind of had the twilight of their career in Tampa. So I don't know. I would love for him to end up in the Hall of Fame. That would be so exciting. I would consider going to that ceremony, honestly. Coming up to Cooperstown. And it's definitely a discussion. He's definitely going to make it onto the ballot. Like, he's good enough to warrant that. So I don't know. It's going to be tough. Because like you said, he's got the 3 Gold Gloves, which is fun. Like, writers love to talk about accolades and stuff like that, and the moments, like the softer things that you can't really mention. Like the 162 thing is huge. Like, I love that. I feel like that's going to be a really, really big sort of piece of his Hall of Fame case, if there is one to be made for writers, is that, hey, like, this guy was a big performer. He played big in the biggest moments and all that stuff. So, I think that there's definitely a case to be made. We'll just have to see. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be, can he find a way onto that first ballot with enough percentage to hang around? Because I agree with you. It's that first year. Sometimes it's the hardest for guys to get on the ballot. The good news, I think, for him is that some guys with some notoriety that are, I think, kind of taking up spots on the ballot, like an Alex Rodriguez, are going to fall off eventually here in a couple of years. And then some of that will clear up, I think, to give him a lane to make it onto the ballot. But I just think that, when you think about the Rays in the Hall of Fame, if it's not Longo, I don't know who the next guy to wear a Rays cap would be. I mean, we might be waiting until Junior Caminero retires before we can see a guy in a Rays hat. Because even some of the guys that have played for the Rays, so like, I mean, there's not a whole lot of guys really that are even, be potential. Like if somehow Tyler Glasnow just manages to stay healthy for the next 10 years, maybe he'd make it into the Hall. But I mean, if he did, I'm sure he wouldn't be wearing. Maybe he would. I don't know. Probably not. He probably with some other teams in between that. Blake Snell, same thing. I don't know where he would wear. So I really want to see him in the Hall of Fame, and I think he deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like a lot of discussion. I mean, with the depressing part of the Hall of Fame talks, with the character clause and all that stuff. And Longoria definitely passes that test. Like he definitely didn't have any off the field stuff. He was definitely always clean cut
guy, leader.
Yeah, just seems like a decent dude. Like he's at least not going to embarrass the Hall of Fame with anything, hopefully. Where can't really say the same for some other people that are. Anyways, yeah, exactly. So yeah, he's definitely a guy I'm rooting for to get in, but it's going to be a tough road. It's going to be a tough road for sure.
Speaking of embarrassment, the Baltimore Orioles just fired their manager and are dead last in the American League. I think maybe not the American League, but definitely in the American League East. 15-28, just fired their manager, and they are like, I was stunned to look at the statistics. They basically are dead last in baseball in almost every pitching statistic. Like they're the worst in ERA, the worst in home runs given up, the worst in FIP. I think they were like fourth in walks allowed. Like, I mean, just terrible. Bad pitching. Who could have predicted that? Everybody. Their best pitcher is 32-year-old Zach Eflin, who we love, but he's your best pitcher. You were rolling out 42-year-old Charlie Morton. You're relying on guys like Kyle Gibson, who currently sits at 11 ERA right now. Your young stud Gray Rod is hurt. The guy you spent $10 million on, Andrew Kittredge, who we love, is also hurt. It's the pitching's a mess, and the young hitters are being young hitters, and going through rough patches. The lineup, the position players sit at like a 96 WRC plus for the season so far. So the nothing good. The hitters are about league average, and the pitching is literally the worst in baseball. Do you think that the solution to all their problems was firing Brandon Hyde?
No. That's it. That's the show, everyone.
That's it. All right. See you guys.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's definitely not. I don't know what else Brandon Hyde could have done differently necessarily. I'm sure, like with all managers, you can nitpick lineup decisions, bullpen decisions, all that stuff. But that's getting into the weeds, and that's getting into stuff that, just I don't know. It seems like the type of move that a floundering team with a owner that's freaking out and a GM that's doing this, or a Pobo, whatever you want to call them, that's doing the same. It seems like the type of move that they would make to sort of try to find a scapegoat, just try to appease the fan base. Like, here, we're doing something, like just sort of change for change's sake. But maybe there's softer things or more behind the scenes stuff that we're not hearing or seeing. He could be not bought into the whatever movement they've got going on. I don't know. It's just tough because, Mike Elias has been there for kind of a long time now. And you look around baseball at other teams that have gone through regime changes, and they have been able to turn things on a dime. Like the Mets. I mean, my goodness, they've turned, Sean Manaea into a pretty darn good pitcher. They gave him a bunch of money, and rightfully so. They've turned Clay Holmes into a good starting pitcher. There are other teams that have pitching factories that they can set up far quicker. And obviously the Mets have a far bigger, insurmountably bigger payroll and amount of money than the Orioles do. But then you look at a team like the Brewers, and they lost David Stearns, and they're still cranking out pitchers too. So I don't know. It's weird. I don't really, I get that they have a lot of pitching injuries. Like you mentioned, Grayson Rodriguez getting hurt. Who could have seen that coming with his clean bill of health throughout his career? Like, I don't know. Like putting this all on pitching injuries, I get it. But at the same time, like a lot of these guys that are on the IL were on the IL before the off season started. Like it's not like all of a sudden, just I forget what the specific names are, but they've got some guys that have been, hung up on the shelf like Kyle Bradish for a while now. And so it's very strange that their biggest offseason acquisitions were Charlie Morton and Tyler O'Neill and Andrew Kittredge. And then they turn around and are surprised that, their pitching staff is getting shelled every night. I would be incredibly frustrated as an Orioles fan because things are only going to get more expensive with Gunnar and Adley Rutschman. Their salaries are only going to go up. So the fact that they're not committed to spending money right now on things that they desperately need, what are they going to do when Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson actually need contracts? Like obviously the free agency system is incredibly flawed and skewed towards teams so that players aren't in their maximum earning potential when they're actually playing their best. So the Orioles need to take advantage of that. And so far they haven't. And that's incredibly frustrating as an Orioles fan. But, a lot of people believe in Mike Elias. A lot of people are saying, hey, patience, like they're still not there yet. So we'll see. I'm hopeful that Mike Elias keeps his job because he seems to be doing a dandy job screwing it up. So good for him. Good for the Rays, because then hopefully at least they won't be cellar dwellers because the Orioles will be taking that spot. So we'll see how it plays out, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough when you've got, because you talked about Adley and Gunnar, but what are you going to do with Ryan Mountcastle, Jackson Holiday as he starts to get older? You're going to probably lose guys like Cedric Mullins. Like, there's just going to be no money for those guys when you're already going to be playing Gunnar and Ryan Mountcastle. And that's not even getting into, like, do you think that you want to pay Grayson Rodriguez at some point? It's a complete mess. In my opinion, this was the year to kind of start to go all in. They definitely hit their window of success early, which I would actually kind of give some credit to Brandon Hyde for that. But they hit their window of success early, and we kind of thought it was just going to be sky's the limit. It really hasn't been. Not shocking with young guys, but it just felt like this was a year where they could have bolstered those young guys with some experienced talent. Maybe not as experienced as Charlie Morton, but some experienced talent in the lineup to help, guide them a little bit and be, I guess Tyler O'Neill was their solution to that. And in the pitching staff, they didn't go get an ace. They didn't go out there. They did not retain Corbin Burns for reasons I do not understand. And this is where they are now. And like you said, it works out for us because they're going to be the worst team in the American League East, probably at least for the rest of this year. And I mean, but the truth is, with as good as their young core is, they could bounce back, like you said, quickly. They probably will still finish, pretty low in the American League East, if not the worst, even if they do turn things around a little bit. But they will, they could turn it around as soon as next year. But you got to wonder, at one point, do the Orioles start spending some money? Because they're going to have to, whether they like it or not, very soon with Adley and Gunnar. And so it's just a question of, do you want to say we're just going to hope that young guys come up through our system, which, I wonder if they may promote some of their guys already in there, whether it's the farm system or whether it's, AAA manager or whatever. Be curious to see who they promote up to, a managerial position, or if they go outside the organization. I like you kind of mentioned, maybe Brandon Hyde wasn't with the program. Do they go find somebody who has been building the program, who's really with the program down in the minor leagues to manage these guys? Maybe that might be the move, especially I don't even know if they've named an interim manager or not. But I would imagine that the AAA manager will get called up for the interim, and then we'll see if that sticks long term. But yeah, we're gonna enjoy feasting on Baltimore pitching and feeling a little bit bad, maybe just a little bad, that the young guys are floundering with no real direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, and getting back to your point about Burns and acquiring an ace, I don't even know that I would have wanted them to do that. Like, I would have understood if this offseason they were like, hey, we're going to let Corbin Burns walk, but we're going to go sort of buy in bulk, so to speak. Like, we're not going to spend $30+ million on Corbin Burns for 8 years, but we'll spend, $30 million on 2 or 3 other guys. And then it'll only be for short-term deals. Okay, cool. Hey, I get it. Committing long-term money to pitching like that, especially when you have expensive position players, I totally understand. But they didn't do that either, so it's like, and if they would have extended Gunnar or Adley, then that would have been a very successful offseason. That would have been like, oh, that's what y'all are doing. Y'all are trying to keep your own guys. Cool. Because it's tough, because if Gunnar has, if he bounces back and has another, at least approaching last season's type of year where he has a 6 or 7 more or whatever he had last year, then man, he's not going to settle for an extension. He's going to absolutely sit out. He's going to be like, yeah, no, there's no chance I'm signing an extension right now. And same with Adley Rutschman. I don't really get why they've waited so long. And it's just very frustrating, because baseball is better when there are more good teams that are actively trying to be good. And the Orioles do not seem to be doing that. That was not the vision of this offseason. So yeah, I don't know. Very frustrating as an Orioles fan, but as Rays fans, it's good news.
If you when you look every single day at your wardrobe, are trying to strive for excellence, trying to compete at the highest level of your wardrobe every single day. And you're wondering how to continue that success that you may already be having or get to the next level of success, shop.rwlargesports.com is the place for you. You can go there right now, find all the best merchandise based on your favorite Tampa Bay sports teams. Rowdies, Bucks, Lightning, Rays, and Sun are all there. Shop.rwlargesports.com. You can go there, get 10% off your entire order, promo code FLAPPY, FLAPPY, and then go out there and crush it and be a top performer in the fashion market today. Shop.rwlargesports.com, promo code FLAPPY, FLAPPY for 10% off your entire order.
Check it out. We got some fire gear up there.
We do. Speaking of fire, the chance to sweep the Brewers went up in flames to begin the week. I know we've talked so much. We're actually going to talk about some played baseball now before we get to the end of the show today. The Brewers series ends, unfortunately, in a 4-2 loss. Rasmussen, who has been excellent kind of all season long. I wouldn't say he was bad, but he wasn't, he allowed, allowing 3 runs maybe for him is a bad start. The bullpen only allows 1 other run, but the offense just cannot get it done against Tyler Alexander gets the win in that game. Hello. Just couldn't get it done against the Brewers bullpen to unfortunately drop the last game. Still win the series, but drop the last game.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a tough night last night. But and the Brewers series was tough. Tyler Alexander, what a shout out. Remember a guy, right? I mean, my goodness, he was definitely an interesting member of the Rays. I mean, that Brewers series, ending on that note was tough, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Tough
way to end that series. And then we go from the end of that series into one of the most, exciting, maybe not, fun, all of it for Rays fans, most exciting baseball game so far this season, the 11-9 win over the Blue Jays, punctuated in dramatic, who else fashion, Junior Caminero not a walk-off grand slam, but go-ahead grand slam in the top of the 9th. And because it wasn't a walk-off and the Blue Jays got to hit, they put up some runs, made us sweat a little bit, found a way. Mason Montgomery comes in for the save after Fairbanks couldn't quite get it done. Montgomery comes in and gets Dalton Varsho, who had been kind of killing us. He finds a way to get in there and get the save, 11-9 win to start the Blue Jays series.
Yeah, that was a white knuckle game for sure. There were definitely some times that I was not sure that was going to work out. But Monty coming in, what a spot for him to come in and slam the door shut with that. I think it was 1 out, but it was still good gracious, thank goodness, because that was definitely a fun up and down game for a neutral third party baseball observer. Like it was a very exciting game, but I don't know if I would call it a fun game for Rays fans to watch. That's for sure.
And that first game also saw Edwin Uceta give up 3 runs in very unfortunate fashion as the Rays had kind of taken a lead. How are you feeling on Edwin Uceta? He'd been kind of the guy that was the get you to the 9th guy, or your very high leverage reliever was how we viewed him to begin the season. How are you feeling about the temperature on him right now?
Yeah, not good. It's definitely getting hot in the kitchen with him because it's been a few times now. I mean, he pitched against the Phillies a week or 2 ago. I can't remember, but he had a blow up outing against them, and it's not great, not going too super well for him. Hopefully he can turn things around, sort of adjust to the adjustment that the league has somehow made against him. Maybe he can kind of tweak some things on his end, because clearly the league has figured something out with him. The truth is out with it when you say that, the scouting reports are there. So it's unfortunate because he was so great last year. I mean, he was one of the best relievers really in baseball period. So it's been tough to watch him sort of fall into this rut. But that's bullpens. The bullpens in baseball. It's like one year after the other. Edwin Diaz has awful years sometimes. It's weird, man. It's so flaky. So it can be tough, but hopefully he can turn it around sooner rather than later, because things could get kind of dicey with his roster spot, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I mean, 6 earned runs given up over the last 3 outings. Was really good before that. Put up an extended streak of zeros before that. Had a bit of a rough start the last couple outings. And really the reason I wanted to bring that up is because even though he's not on the roster anymore, Mason Englert went down to AAA. I kind of wanted to apologize a little bit to Mason Englert. I kind of got mad that we brought him in a couple weeks ago in a move that I didn't like from Kevin Cash in that Philly series, where I felt like we were going to face a bunch of lefties and we needed to kind of get that game. Englert comes in and gives up some runs. I wanted them to go to Uceda, and Uceda has just not been good. And he had a rough outing against the Phillies, and then was almost gave away the game against the first game of the Orioles series, and he hasn't, or the Blue Jays series, and he hasn't pinched since then. I don't think he's off the out of the rotation for the bullpen, but I do wonder if they were like, all right, we need to give you some time here. Like, let's go, relax for a day or two. You clearly need to work something out. I do wonder if, with all relievers, there's usually a pitch that everybody kind of knows you're looking for. Uceda's changeup has been plus for a long time. I do wonder if there's some adjustment the league has made to the changeup. That's probably going to have to be seen over the course of a longer span of outings. But that's the thing to watch, I would say, for him, is because there was a couple of big hits off of the changeup in those last 3 outings. So that's something that I'm going to be watching is can he make whatever adjustment he's making? If he's tipping pitches, I don't know what he's doing, but can he find a way to get, return the changeup to the elite status that we've known it for? And that's kind of been his calling card. So that's something that I'm going to be watching going forward with Uceda. The middle game of the Blue Jays series, it was actually a pretty, I thought, a really nice start by Pepiot, even though he unfortunately gave up some runs late in the outing. I thought he looked really good for most of the outing. And then maybe you could say, I felt like he got left in just maybe a smidge too long, and gives up the home run to Kirk. That ends up being the only damage that Toronto does in that game. I think I could have seen him coming out, or either earlier in the 6th or before the 6th, because he had a really nice outing up till then, but gives up that 3-run shot. A tough way for that, for that outing to end for him. Orzi comes in and gets the last 2 innings, and the offense just wasn't really able to get runs across. 7 hits, 1 run scored. Just tough. And, you look at the bottom of the lineup, really, really kind of hurt. Jankowski 0 for 3. Caballero goes 1 for 3. Jansen goes 0 for 4. And despite a pretty okay, Morel goes 0 for 4. Despite a pretty okay performance from the top of the lineup, just could not find a way to get things going and get some runs in, despite a couple of hits.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to have offense every night. And it's tough to win a game if your offense is only putting up 1 run. Right. So I feel like maybe you can kind of nitpick with the Pepiot thing, with Cash's leaving him in. But then again, if you take him out too early and maybe those runs score somehow anyways, and then it's, they took him out too much. But it's all good. Games like that are going to happen. That's not one that is going to keep you up at night. There have definitely been games throughout this season that are like, oh wow, the Rays lost this game. I don't know, that one against the middle game against the Blue Jays, it's tough. 3-1 loss. It's going to happen every now and then. But like you said, Pepiot was fine. He just, stuff happens. Sometimes Alejandro Kirk just hits a home run. It doesn't happen super often with him, but sometimes he gets a hold of one. So that's how it be sometimes. I wouldn't put too much stock into it, but it's all good because not to spoil anything, but they won the series anyways. So
they did win the series anyways, and they won it with the brotherhood of Lau and Lowe, with Josh Lowe, returning from the IL. First at bat, single. We mentioned it earlier. First at bat, single, bomb from Bilal to start the scoring off. We would hear more from Josh Lowe later, and we would hear more from Brandon Lowe later in the game, both with home runs later in the game. Really, really awesome to see them lighting up a little bit. Meisner getting into the action, which was really nice to see because he was good. He was having a really rough go of it. Nice to see him getting back into the action. And we were on complete game watch for a little bit with Zach Littell. He was kind of cruising going into the 7th, and it fell apart a little bit and started to gave up one more home run after a couple of runs early. And they ended up taking him out after 7 1/3. But overall, a really nice start from Littell. Only one walk, which we really like to see from him. But 7 1/3 innings from him, Emrod, and then Cole Sulser wrap it up. And really, really fun to get that kind of a offensive performance off of, ostensibly the Blue Jays' best pitcher in Kevin Gausman.
Yeah, I mean, Gausman's a tough guy. He's got that splitter that's just filthy. I don't know. I don't know how they managed to put up such a great outing against him, frankly. Because I was kind of nervous. The rubber match. Littell's been solid. He's the take the ball every 5th day type of guy, and he can be really good sometimes. And obviously, he was dealing. He had a great game that day, so that was really fun to watch. But yeah, the offense coming alive against Kevin Gausman, I can't say that I saw that coming necessarily. But they produced. Josh Lowe coming back. Like you said, the welcome to Lowe's or Laos, whichever one you want to pronounce it like. But yeah, it was an exciting game to watch for sure. Just a lot of offense from the Rays, and it would have been cool for Littell to get a complete game, but he just couldn't quite get to the finish line, and that was tough because it would have been really fun. Obviously, also from a practical standpoint, save the bullpen, but it's all good. It was a really, really good game. Just a really solid performance all the way around from the Rays.
Yeah, and the Rays kind of made hay against the fastball from Kevin Gausman, which I would say was unexpected. The fastball hovered around 94 to 96. Meisner did damage against it. Bilal did damage against it. The slider got victimized a little bit as well. Really, I was surprised to see them get to the fastball that much on him. Chandler Simpson turned around a 98-mile-per-hour fastball, put it in the outfield for an RBI. And Brandon Lowe, not off of Gausman, but later in the game, something that we've mentioned a couple of times on this show, the velocity being a bit of a problem for him this year. Wasn't a problem in this game. Turned a fastball around from Gausman in the 1st, and then turned another 98-mile-per-hour fastball around off of Urania for a bomb in the 9th. So really, really good to see the offense being able to handle that velocity up from a really, really good pitcher in Kevin Gausman, and from a pretty good, Urania's been a pretty decent, reliever throughout his career. Has having a rough year this year, but has been, generally considered a pretty good reliever. So getting some offense off of that high velocity was good to see for the Rays offense. And taking another series win. They've, as much as the record isn't where we want it to be right now, they've been winning series. It's just been a couple of tough sweeps against the Rays. And really that 4-game series against the Yankees where you lost, 3 out of 4 really hurts the record in the long term. Because really since then they've been winning series.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's tough because you want to tell people like, oh, things are going to pick up, but obviously, the record continues to sort of be at or below 500. It's frustrating. I totally get it. But you just, got to keep at it. It's such a long season. I mean, are we even a quarter of the way through? Like, or did we just hit 40 plus games, I think, completed? So
44 games through the season. So
yeah, so barely over a quarter of the way through. Yeah. It's, for football terms, it's been the first 4 games of the NFL season in football terms. So it's just, baseball is just such a grind. It's a marathon, all those cliches. So just gotta keep the faith and, keep watching games because the Rays are a fun team regardless. They've got some really exciting, electrifying players like Chandler Simpson, like you just mentioned. I mean, who knows what he can do on any given night with his speed. Plus Junior Caminero. I mean, that home run that he hit that other night, the grand slam. I mean, yeah, it's just there's going to be exciting stuff to watch no matter what with the Rays. So you got to keep watching. I'm going to keep watching the games, and it's going to be fun. So regardless of the season, they're such a young team. They've got such young prospects coming through. Even if things don't exactly work out this year and they don't make the playoffs, it's all good. Things are going to be so much better next year. I have a lot of faith in this team.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think this team, I think you made a really nice point about it being a quarter of the way through the NFL season you'd be 2-2 right now. And I would say there's no franchise that says season's over if we're 2-2 after 4 games. Exactly. You're like, okay, lost a tough one here, maybe won a good game against a tough opponent here. You'd be feeling all right. Let's see what we got. And really, I think that's where the team is right now. It's just let's see what we got. And if we can get Josh Lowe, who was so nice to have him back, he hit. We were going to mention the Marlins game. Not a whole lot to talk about. Unfortunately, was not a great game. Bradley had a rough start, but Josh Lowe got another hit. So he now he's now 4. I think he's 4 for 8 so far since coming back from injury. He'll cool off probably from that level at some point, but really, really good to see him coming back and providing immediate value offensively. We get him back if we can get Caminero doing things, and we haven't even seen Ha-Seong Kim in a Rays uniform yet.
Right,
haven't even seen him yet. Palacios has been hurt; he might come back. And the thing we probably don't have time to do this conversation this week, but stay tuned for it. Is Morel has not really been doing what we need him to do. If he finds a way to turn it around somehow and see and get some of that value that we believed that he had, this team could go to another gear offensively. And we already know the team can get to another gear from a pitching perspective. So there's so much potential with this team. The flip side to that potential is kind of what we saw in last night's game versus the Marlins, where you do have a young team. And even when the offense was actually pretty fine overall, the pitching staff is young. Your young guys, Bradley and Montgomery, combined for 4 1/3 innings and 8 runs given up. That's not going to work. And the reality is you just gotta be okay with that. And I think that if you ask the Rays staff, they'd be like, yeah, we're just kind of fine with that one. We're okay with that outcome because we know what Montgomery can do. We saw him against the Blue Jays get to Varsho, who had been killing the Rays all day, get the out with guys on in a critical moment. We know what he's capable of. Same thing with Taj. The last several outings for him have been excellent. And then he throws up a stinker. But we know what those guys can do. So as much as there's some frustration with a game like yesterday, I think you just kind of got to say that's one of the 60 games you're going to lose. You got to be okay with that because this is what's going to happen when you have young guys. You take the high levels of talent and the really good performances with the stinkers.
Yeah, absolutely. Junior Caminero is like 22 or something crazy. I don't even know. He's stupid young. It's insane. So yeah, it's just like you said, highs and lows. It's baseball season. There's so much stupid stuff going on. I was looking just as sort of a good example. Like if you look at Javier Baez's like underlying metrics, like his quality of contact stuff and like that, and he's hitting like over 140, or he's got a really good one, like WRC plus. He's hitting well above average. And then you look at Nolan Jones and he's hitting the crap out of the ball and he's got like a 50 WRC plus or something stupid. It's still so early. There's still so much baseball to be played. And it's also baseball. Like it's kind of a stupid sport sometimes. So it can be really frustrating to deal with all that, but it's got to hang tight, got to hang loose and just keep with it. So we'll see how it goes, but I have faith that the Rays can turn around. Cause like you said, Ha-Seong Kim, he's going to be a lot of fun. He's going to be very exciting. So I'm excited for what the Rays have in store.
Yeah, you made a good point about age. The oldest guy on the Rays, the kind of the old guys, Yandy Diaz and Brandon Lau, they're above 30. There's no other position players besides Danny Jansen, who's not long for this team, over the age of 30. Josh Lowe, 27. Jonathan Aranda, 27. Junior, not even 22 yet. Meisner's 27. Chandler's not even 25 yet in the pitching staff. There are no starting pitchers, even Littell, by the way, over the age of 30. Pepio's 28. Bradley's 25. Bradley's still 25. Boz is 26. And then you go to the bullpen, and Mason Montgomery's not even 25 years old yet. There is still so much potential for all these guys to hit their ceilings that we haven't seen the ceilings on half of these guys yet. Like, think about how good Caminero, we've seen in moments how good Caminero has been. We have not even approached his ceiling yet of what he can be as a baseball player. That is something to be excited about. No matter what happens this year or even next year, to know that Junior Caminero is 21 and like 9 months years old and hasn't even come close to his ceiling, that's something to be excited about as a Rays fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Just hope he can keep his head on straight, keep his wits about him. There are some moments where Junior does stuff and you're just kind of reminded that, oh yeah,
Yes.
he's 21, like he
Yeah.
can do some very, very silly things on the baseball field. So, hopefully he can just keep moving forward, keep maturing and keep growing up as a player and as, obviously don't know him personally, so who knows as a person, but hopefully you can just start to rough out the edges because, there are certainly moments where it's like, oh, yeah, this guy's still a kid. So hopefully he can figure some of that stuff out.
Yeah. Speaking of people who have figured some things out, our bat and arm of the week, my bat, and you can tell me if you disagree, my bat of the week this week is a guy who is maybe the discourse king amongst Rays fans, but has once again had a type of performance that is going to turn the doubters down, at least for a little bit. That's Brandon Lau. 2 home runs over the last week, 6 runs batted in, 216 WRC plus, 0.4 F4, almost half an F4 put up over the last week. Shout out to Josh Lowe as well, puts up a 255 WRC plus in this week. And I hate to say this, I feel like I have to give a shout out to one other player, unfortunately, and I'm being unnecessarily mean to here. Danny Jansen, 216 WRC plus, didn't strike out at all this week. That's kind of crazy.
That is kind of crazy.
So I guess good job, Danny Jansen, but the bat of the week still Brandon Lau.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Brandon Lau. I mean, this is the quintessential Brandon Lau. He has a week where he looks like, there's not even really a good player comparison, maybe a left-handed Ryan Sandberg, I guess. But Brandon Lau just has weeks like this where he's just, ridiculous. He gets the right pitches. He's on time with everything. Hopefully he can sort of maintain this a little bit, or at least have a few more weeks like this, even if it's surrounded by sort of mediocrity at best. Because then he'll have a pretty good season, then he'll have a pretty good year. So that's what I'm hoping for from Brandon Lau. And obviously this week was just a great one, really outstanding stuff. And Danny Jansen, he's turning it around with the bat, probably not, but
maybe he just wanted to kill the Blue Jays. That's kind of what it felt like, is he was just like, I'm really going to kill the Blue Jays.
Yeah, former team, all that motivation. Maybe he just needs to play in Toronto every week. I don't know.
I guess so.
The problem with him is never really, this year it's been the bat, obviously, too, but it's just, can he figure out how to do things defensively? I don't know if it's in the cards for him, but we'll see. Hopefully he can, but I don't know. Not a lot of faith.
When we go to arm of the week, was unfortunately not an amazing week for arms. Shout out to Zach Littell, who had a nice outing, but I'm going to give it to Ryan Pepio, because even though he did give up the 3-run shot to end his outing, I thought he looked really good throughout the rest of it. He leads the team in F4 for the week for pitching. Not the best week ever in pitching for Rays baseball, but goes 6 innings, gives up the 1 3-run shot. Other than that, was pretty clean the rest of the day. We need more from him. We need this outing and better from him. He's been a guy that, honestly, I've been a little disappointed in so far this season. He hasn't really gotten to where we want him to get. We need more of this from you, Ryan Pepio. You've got to be what we know you can be for this team to get where we want it to get. So this arm of the week is because he was pretty good this week, but it's also kind of a, come on, Ryan, I believe in you and I want more from you. Give me more of this and better.
Yeah. Pep's got the great stuff. He can turn things around. All the pitchers that have struggled up to this point, which no doubt he has not gotten the results that the Rays have needed from him, but he can turn things around very easily. I wouldn't be surprised if he manages to put forth a very productive still season, especially if he just stays healthy. If he stays healthy for the rest of the year, I have no doubt that he can be one of the best pitchers on this staff. But and also I thought Littell had just such an outstanding outing. He just looked in control out there, just inducing weak contact, just doing his thing. Just doing what Zach Littell does. And I'm excited to see how this pitching staff can continue, because they've, had their ups and downs. The bullpen's had a few blow up games here and there, but I'm not concerned about that group at all. I think that health is always, knock on wood and all that stuff. Health is just always such the number one concern with pitching staffs, that if that's there, then this, the sky's the limit for this pitching staff.
Shout out also to Eric Orz, who had 4 innings pitched this week. Also was leading the team with 0.194. He's been pretty good. He's been a guy that we didn't really know where he was going to fit into the bullpen to begin the season. But has come up and pitched some important innings for the Rays. So shout out to Eric Orzi for making some really nice pitches and getting some innings that needed to be got. When you think about the game that Pepio started and gave up the 3 runs, Orzi comes in and gets the last 2. That stuff matters in the grand scheme of the season. Any game you don't have to use Pete Fairbanks, so you can use him for a game that you'd really like to win, is a really good outcome. So thanks, Eric, for the innings, and really like his stuff. I'd be curious to see if he stays 6th round longer.
Yeah, I mean, he was part of the Jose Siri deal from the Mets. Yeah,
I believe so. Yes,
I think so. Yeah. So I was curious because Siri was had his warts, and he also had his positives. So I was interested to see what the Rays got for him, because while he was definitely not the most perfect player, he was certainly flawed. He definitely provided value, because what he did really well, and that's play center field. So I was intrigued by what they got in return for him. So Orzi's been he's been another kind of faceless arm, right? Like the Rays seem to just produce value out of just guys that you just don't really ever hear of, and that's just their thing, because they've got that that pitching factory. That's the Rays way. So yeah, he's just another one in a long line. So it's been really interesting to watch him go out there and do his thing.
Yep, has been getting good outcomes with the fastball and with his off-speed pitch, his changeup. One of the things that has been kind of his calling card so far has been this hard hit rate. In the 94th percentile in hard hit rate is Eric Orzi. So if he can keep that kind of stuff up, the defense behind him when he's pitching for the Rays is going to be good enough to help him get some, clean innings. So let's keep seeing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, right there with you. Right there with you.
I think it's going to be our show for today. We really appreciate everybody that's joined us this week. A lot of stuff we talked about today. If you got thoughts on any of what we talked about today, we want to hear it. Whether you're in the comments on YouTube, whether you are over on Twitter or wherever else on social media, giving us your thoughts. We want to hear from you guys. We appreciate Carter so much for joining us today and talking some ball with us. We are really looking forward to kind of seeing what this next week will bring. It's I wouldn't say that, there's never any must-win weeks, but it does feel like this Miami series at least is a must-win, because after this we go to Houston, we have Houston at home and Toronto at home, which kind of feels like an away game in the traditional sense because of how bad the team has played at home so far. Yeah, so I really would like to win this Miami series and be able to take some of that, continue some of the positive momentum the team has had into Houston at home, which, they haven't been as good this year as they've been in previous years, but there's that aura around them that of, just kind of excellence for the last several years now. And then Toronto at home, we'll see. I think we match up. We just matched up well against Toronto, but it's with Steinbrenner. It's kind of a who knows. I will be there next week. Excited about that in Toronto, or not in Toronto, at Steinbrenner. If you see me and you want to say hi, please do. I'm excited. I haven't been able to come down and come to a Rays game in a little while, so very excited to be there for that Toronto series. And we hope that you will join us back here on the pod every week for the rest of the season and into the off season. We're going to stay here talking Rays ball all off season long. We hope you'll join us. The team, we still believe in this team. We think they're going to do excellent things throughout the rest of the season. Young talent's going to continue to get better, and all the way long, it's going to be Rays up.
Rays up.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.